My God, I hate drugs.
Manila Mayor Isko Moreno conducted another surprise inspection at the Andres Bonifacio Monument near City Hall past midnight. On Wednesday, he discovered human feces around the area and immediately ordered the relief of the police station commander. On his Facebook Live, Moreno showed the monument has been cleaned, Capiz lanterns have been installed, and the Emilio Jacinto sculpture, which had graffiti last week, has been repainted. Mayor Isko urges the public to help maintain cleanliness in the area and calls on agencies concerned to ensure public safety.
Kailangan talaga ang mga bahagi ng lokal na pamahalaan, bureau, department, dapat merong skeleton sa gabi. Lalo na yung mga patungkol sa kalye at saka yung mga pulis natin. About 1 week ago, punong-puno po ito ng mga nakasementong bahay, banyo, tindahan. For 6 years, nanatili sila dyan.
Senior diplomats from the Philippines and the United States will discuss tomorrow, Monday, key issues involving the alliance between the two countries. Military and international studies experts say it's proof that both Manila and Washington are exerting efforts to remain friends, partners, and allies. Our correspondent Paulo Barcelon tells us more.
After 4 years, Manila will once again play host to the 8th bilateral strategic dialogue between the Philippines and the United States. It couldn't have come at a more opportune time, as the Duterte administration has intensified its dealings with other partners, especially with its nearest rival in the Pacific, China. Incidents of harassment against Filipino fishermen involving Chinese fishing vessels, such as what happened to the crew of Filipino fishing boat Gemver at Recto Bank, continue to happen, despite Manila's warming relations with Beijing. De La Salle University International Studies professor Renato de Castro says these are part of Beijing's coercive operations in the South China Sea. He believes Filipino and American officials will discuss the Recto Bank incident at the meeting, as well as how the Philippines may learn or gain capabilities from the United States in dealing with similar incidents.
First, we have to accept the fact that despite the friendship we have from China, China is still applying gray zone operation. And how do we address this? This will probably involve training the Coast Guard. This will involve, of course, application of certain technologies in terms of identifying fishing vessels.
As the Recto Bank incident took center stage at home and abroad, proposals to invoke the Mutual Defense Treaty have also taken center stage. The treaty states that an armed attack in the Pacific areas of both countries would enable military assistance between the two countries. However, the use of the term Pacific in the treaty remains unclear. For defense analyst and military historian Jose Antonio Custodio, reviewing or invoking the long-standing treaty between Manila and Washington does not apply in the aftermath of the Recto Bank incident. Custodio says the Mutual Defense Treaty is not simply a one-way commitment by the United States to defend the Philippines, and that key government leaders should focus on strengthening the country's defense capabilities instead of demanding America's presence to defend the country from external threats.
The problem, however, is the Philippines is like a spoiled brat. Tampuhin, It wants things clearer, but at the same time, it is not willing to step up its defense.
Both De Castro and Custodio say the enhancement of the country's military capabilities may also be brought up in the dialogue, saying that officials from both Manila and Washington may discuss how to balance President Duterte's wish to buy top-of-the-line military equipment with the operational and budgetary requirements of the armed forces. Aside from security, the two-day dialogue in Manila will also cover topics such as law enforcement, economics, rule of law, and regional diplomacy. U.S. Ambassador to the Philippines Sung Kim will lead the American delegation, while Foreign Affairs Undersecretary Enrique Manalo will lead the Philippine contingent. Paulo Barcelon, CNN Philippines.
The camp of Vice President Leni Robredo downplays a statement of the Presidential Anti-Corruption Commissioner Attorney Manuelito Luna, saying she may be impeached for supporting the United Nations Human Rights Council's plan to review the country's war on drugs. Attorney Barry Gutierrez, a spokesperson of Mrs. Robredo, says the impeachment process begins in the House of Representatives, in which PACC is not a member. He adds Vice President Robredo is ready to face any case because she has not done any wrong. Yesterday, Commissioner Luna said the Vice President's support for the UN HRC resolution has made it appear that the government is guilty of human rights abuses and that this is betrayal of public trust. In other news, a United Nations expert says there may be sanctions should the Philippine government reject results of a possible probe by the United Nations Human Rights Council on the human rights situation in the country. But Malacanang says right now it is unclear if UN probers will even be allowed to set foot in the Philippines. Our Paulo Barcelon tells us more.
UN Special Rapporteur Agnes Calamard urged Philippine government officials to heed the call of the international community to allow probers from the UN High Commission for Human Rights to investigate the human rights situation in the country. This comes after the United Nations Human Rights Council in Geneva adopted an Iceland-sponsored resolution signed by 37 other countries asking for a written report on the Philippines. Calamard says it's time for the government to act and shift its strategy, particularly in the fight against illegal drugs, and adopt a human rights-based approach. Government data shows over 6,600 people have been killed in anti-drug operations, and more than 27,000 deaths have been filed by police as homicides under investigation. But if the country refuses to acknowledge the results of the probe, Calamard says the country should brace for possible consequences.
The cost can take many shapes. It can be sanctions. It can be something related to the assistance, developmental assistance. It can be symbolic. It can be economic. It can be political.
However, Malacanang dismissed Calamard's statement, saying that the United Nations cannot issue sanctions in the country. Presidential spokesperson Salvador Panelo says only powerful countries like the United States, China, and Russia can issue sanctions individually to the Philippines.
UN is not a country, di ba? Unless it is like America that can impose sanctions on trade. UN is just an international organization of countries.
Panelo also took a swipe at the UN expert, saying that she's making recommendations out of what he calls false information. Key government and law enforcement officials were split on the idea of allowing UN inspectors to the country to investigate the war on drugs. Via Twitter, Foreign Affairs Secretary Tedeboy Locsin said any probe born out of the resolution will not be allowed in the country, while PNP Chief General Oscar Albayalde says such a probe is unnecessary. But Albayalde's predecessor, Senator Ronald Bato de la Rosa, supports the probe, even daring people to decapitate him if the killings were found out to be state-sponsored. But Panelo says only President Duterte's decision will determine whether or not the investigators will be allowed in.
Presidente masusunod siyempre, hindi yung cabinet member. As a general rule, ayaw natin pakialaman. Pero kung can justify their coming and the President believes in or their sincerity, baka magbagong isip niya.
The UN Human Rights Council adopted the Iceland-sponsored resolution to probe the country's human rights situation last July 11. 18 of the Council's member countries voted for it, 14 said no, and 15 other nations abstained. Paulo Barcelon, CNN Philippines.
An update on the Surigao del Sur quake. Local officials are reporting that the number of people injured has climbed to 63. Surigao del Sur Governor Alexander Pimentel tells CNN Philippines the number may still rise as they await full reports from towns badly hit by the 5.5 magnitude quake yesterday. Pimentel says they're currently assessing the cost of damage to infrastructure. In the town of Carrascal, the governor says almost 7 million pesos worth of damage to infrastructure has been reported. All local government units in the province were ordered to assess the safety of their facilities. Pimentel adds they've distributed food packs and 2,000 pesos in cash aid to each affected family in the town of Carmen. According to the Provincial Disaster Risk Reduction and Management Council, most of the injuries and damage to properties are from the towns of Madrid, Lanuza, Cantilan, Carmen, and Carrascal.
Parang nagmi-meeting pa rin kasi baka mamaya hindi na pwedeng tirahan yan o pasukin. Baka delikado na kasi naglaglagan yung mga walls, yung babae nga, yung matanda, pinadala namin sa hospital sa Adela Charity dahil natabunan siya ng wall ng bahay niya. Tapos, ina-assess pa namin ibang building kung habitable pa ba yan o ano, kasi baka mamaya pati yung mga private and government building, baka mamaya bigla aftershock mag-collapse yan. So, ina-assess, we are now in the process ng ina-assess namin lahat.
We have this breaking news. A magnitude 7.3 earthquake hit Indonesia 5:50 this afternoon Philippine time. The U.S. Geological Survey says the quake had a depth of 10 kilometers. The epicenter was recorded 102 kilometers north-northeast of the coastal town of Laiwui. We'll bring you more details on this as they become available. Moving on, the Alliance of Concerned Transport Organizations, or ACTO, not pushing through with their transport holiday tomorrow. They will instead hold a rally and motorcade to protest the government's Public Utility Vehicle Modernization Program. Chrissy Di Matula reports.
Eugene Lopez has been a jeepney driver for more than 20 years. He says he's in favor of the government's modernization program in phasing out public utility vehicles aged 15 years and older. But he is not in favor of replacing the old units with Euro 4 compliant engines of new models prescribed by the government.
Kasi ang electric po, hindi mo makahatak ng kahit na mabibigat na Hindi natin alam kung baka tumirik. Lalo na ngayon, bagyo-bagyo. Nakatakot din yun sa baha.
Mark Anthony Campan, who has been driving his trusty old jeepney for 5 years, says he is also not in favor of the replacement.
Hindi ako preparado doon sa mga ganun. Dapat doon ang gagawin, ayusin lang. Pero yung mga tanggalin ng mga bulok, yun, mga ganun. Pero yung pipisaw din ng diretso, hindi naman ko yun sa mga naghahanap buhay.
According to the Department of Transportation, the price of a modern jeepney is 1.8 million pesos. Land Bank has agreed to loan money to operators who belong to a government-recognized cooperative. This is because drivers who are part of cooperatives can easily be reached when they have trouble with payment. However, some transport groups find this scheme problematic since there is no assurance that the bank would lend them money.
Ang laman ho doon ay hindi maganda para sa amin. Kasi kaya lang naman na-required yung pagtayo ng korporasyon, yung pagtayo ng kooperatiba para ang dating ng paliwanag nila makapag-loan kami sa bangko.
Because of this, the Alliance of Concerned Transport Organization will hold a protest on Monday, July 15, where around 1,000 of its members are expected to join. They will gather at the Quezon City Memorial Circle at 8 in the morning before proceeding to the Land Transportation Franchising and Regulatory Board, where they will air their grievances. De Luna says the modernization plans implemented specifically for jeepneys should be done slowly but surely.
Walang tumututol po yun. Bilang katunayan po, isa ako sa mga pumirma na kailangan ay magkaroon ng pagmamodernize at baguhin ang sistema ng transportasyon sa ating bansa. Pero kailangan gradual. Hindi kailangan sabay-sabay.
The Land Transportation Franchising and Regulatory Board received word of the protest, and they called on ACTO to cancel, saying it would be disruptive and a disservice to the commuting public. ACTO says if LTFRB would not give in to their negotiations, they would hold a nationwide protest on October, with the participation of its 475,000 members. Chrissy Di Matula, CNN Philippines.